John Herron has a right to be angry. Just 3 years ago, his daughter Courtney was brutally bashed and murdered by the 27-year-old son of a wealthy investment banker and an executive mother, Henry Hammond. And since that fateful day, John has had to endure not only the heartache and pain of the tragic loss of his daughter Courtney. Hammond, however, is about to be allowed to roam amongst the public and enjoy planned day release after serving little more than a year of what should have been a 25-year sentence. It seems the Department of Justice and doctors at Thomas Embling Psychiatric Hospital have little regard for the memory of Courtney or the lives of Victorians as they prepare to set a killer loose. Welcome, John. First of all, deepest condolences, and I can't imagine what this news must have done to you.
Look, it's a blow as a father when you hear that, but I've worked in the system. I knew it very well. As soon as Hammond was not guilty mental impairment, I knew the pathway of Thomas Embling. Why do I know that? Because I was a project director for Forensic Health that awarded Forensic Care the contract 10 years ago. I know the triage system. I know the holiday camp that Thomas Embling is that people don't realise. The en-suited room, TV, video games, swimming pool, then day releases very quickly, jobs, you name it, and then early release. That's wrapped up and life there. And prisoners know this. They game the system to get in there, no doubt.
Surely the government can't be serious, and surely part of the sentencing process that we hear about is in line with public expectation. Now, the likes of you and the families of victims, which you advocate for, not only for your daughter and the Victorian public, have no right. And murderers, it seems, are treated better than yourself and the other victims of their families. What needs to change?
Well, the Victorian government, for starters, but definitely there's no doubt in Victoria that it's all, I keep saying the same thing. It's all about the perpetrator once they've committed a crime. And it doesn't matter how heinous that crime is. A little bit with my daughter, she took 3 agonizing minutes to die. The mortician couldn't put a skull together. Okay. So, and there are other killers and psychopaths in Thomas Embling, believe it or not, much worse. Some that have gone out to kill, like Price, that killed Musavakovic, a really sweet 17-year-old girl locally. There's many of them. Right now, what the Victorian government's doing is it's not looking to address or change this. Number one is cover up. Number two is how is this information getting out? Right? As I said, they seem to admit that I know the system very well. So it's nothing I haven't not known before. So I knew that this was the order of the day. I knew about the day releases. And we can talk about the answer to what your statement was. There's many answers, but I'll address the 25-year sentence fiasco. Okay. Number one, Thomas Embling has about 138 inmates, and maybe about 6 or 7 do the 25 years. The average there, and this is on their website, is about 5 to 6 years. Some do 1 year. It's early release, a bit of a party job, and on the way out too, mind you, about, I'm going to stab a guess here, but I see so many of them. I'd say suppression order is a rule of the day. So you don't even know when they're out and they're off running and offending. Not a problem. Other states, I've seen lots of that. But the 25-year thing is that all of those people in the justice system and the judiciary, when they say to you, oh, it's really tough 25 years, it is nothing short of a complete lie. And they know that. Okay. So I've just given you the average times available on Forensic Care's website. But why do they persist with that? So in the legislation for sentencing, it says nominal 25 years. The word nominal is just recommended, right? And again, with Courtney's sentence, it was, I don't know that Mr. Hammond's going to be having a smooth pathway. That was the words of the judge. Now look where we are now, not 2 years out of been Thomas Embling, walking outside, going to cafes and parks. So that 25 years just doesn't exist. In fact, every time I put out a statement, usually the Office of Public Prosecutions follows defending the killer. So when I said that outside the court after sentencing, they released a statement in favour of Hammond and saying that, oh, the order actually gives the option for it to be longer than that. I've just given you the raw stats. They know that. So they're putting out, let's be frank, right? Here we have this authoritarian regime just peddling yet another lie.
Now, this was a tragedy waiting to happen because Hammond had form for violence against women beforehand, and he'd been sentenced and released early and then went on to brutally murder your daughter.
That's right. So the response from corrections now is nothing to see here. He didn't really come on our radar. The fact is, when he got released and he just vanished, he told prison authorities he was going to go off the grid, right? And they ignored that, and he just disappeared. And the response now is nothing to see here. It's a woman commented on social media I saw yesterday about the situation. She goes, so let me get this right. Hammond almost bashed a woman to death, and he got let out early. Then he bashed a woman to death, and he gets incarcerated and released early again. What is this? Would you say that rampage is going to stop? Is there any indication of that?
John, where does the fault lie? Is there a disconnect with the judges when the judges pass these sentence and then the Department of Corrections get involved? Is it the Department of Corrections that are failing to do the work to implement the sentence of the judge, or is it up to the judge to say more in their sentencing to take the power out of the Department of Corrections to give them the options to do these ridiculous?
Yeah, a bit of clarification. So when I said awarded the contract of Thomas Embling, Thomas Embling's run by Department of Health, not corrections. As soon as a judge makes that nominal 25-year sentence, he's out of the hands of corrections and the Department of Justice, period. The judge actually has no choice. The act, the Mental Impairment Act, stipulates that if they plead guilty mental impairment, and the deal's always done beforehand with the Office of Public Prosecution and the defence, and Courtney's case was no different. It was as quick as you could in the blink of an eye, that because it gets the case off their hand and it's the next one, and at the back end, well, maybe we can silence this if something happens by a suppression order. But that I'll get to that later. But the idea that there's the judiciary has any control over it is actually not the case. They have no choice in that. So the fault lies with the Andrews regime instantly being able to change that. As you've seen recently, they've knocked back any type of suggested change here to the wording of not guilty mental impairment, like the other states have. Like, for example, act proven, but not responsible for the crime, et cetera. Why do they always knock that back? So there's behind that, it's number one, resistance to change, but there is also a political ideology behind this, that the treatment of prisoners is what the Andrews regime calls restorative justice. So often, as I said, I get the OPP putting in a counter statement defending the killer to me and to other victims. In there is this, the killer has rights. We want to restore him to society and cure him, right? But I'm a little bit baffled. Does Thomas Embling have a miraculous cure for schizophrenia that's caused someone to kill someone, that they're over it in a year? I don't think so.
No. John, with the suppression order, I've heard you speak before. This means that you're not informed when he gets out. The police, even if the police have genuine concerns about his propensity to reoffend, the police aren't even informed.
No.
He has no mark, no criminal conviction on his history. So
That's right.
you could bump into him walking down the street. The police could only find out about it once it's too late, and we've had another tragedy.
Oh, totally. Look, talking to one homicide squad detective one time, the police are as frustrated as I am. And he had a call from Brisbane Casino and said, look, there's an offender causing trouble up here. Well, offender, let's say. We thought he killed 2 people only a few years ago, and he's up here. What's the story? And the police said, well, we don't know he's up there. Right? So they're not informed either. I know several families that are terrified. Hammond doesn't have any suppression order. And if there is one, I would break it and go to jail. So cop that one. But other ones that people are very terrified of, the killers. The walking around now, don't know where they are, don't know if they're on day release. The suppression order, they could be completely released and they're out and about. And some of these are really violent, without mincing words, psychopaths that have killed before and will do it again. And it's just some of the inmates there, someone said, what are they like? In many ways, some of them are actually thrill killers. They've committed a lot of crimes, particularly against women. And the next thing, they've gone that step further in a thrill kill, and they're in there having a bit of a holiday, and then they're out. You tell me someone like that, in their mind, is that a green light to do it again?
And to be clear, as we've just stated, this can be changed by a bureaucrat. This is a bureaucratic correction available here.
It's a simple change to legislation. Not only that, it's actually bringing it in line, Victoria, with, say, New South Wales and Tasmania, that have made changes about this. So there's wording of mental impairment. If I give you this, and also putting it before a jury, a year and a half ago, the Andrews government actually made it easier to plead not guilty mental impairment. They slipped a change. They have these omnibus bills where you can slip in legislative amendments without notice or the ability to debate. So they slip one in there that they can go, a plea like that can go straight to a judge, doesn't have to go to jury, not a problem, right? So they've actually made it easier and done it under the cloak of darkness. But that's how they operate with these omnibus bills with a lot of subjects. But that gives you an indication they have no appetite to ease up on offenders. And these offenders, with their suppression orders, they could have already killed half a dozen people. We don't know about it. I've seen some of them, the suppression orders. There are killers going through the courts now with suppression orders right now, killing the death of young women. We don't hear anything. We can't report on it. And OPP is very, very aggressive with news and media outlets that I've had stories, and they'll attack the Herald Sun, Current Affairs especially. They'll get calls instantly to silence them.
Now, the conditions in Thomas Embling, you were mentioned before about the NDIS being involved.
I can't really go into that. That's just some scuttlebutt that was sent to me. But I believe that NDIS funding is available to some of these prisoners. So let's say it might be their pocket money. But again, that was just like not necessarily verified, but I have no what goes on there. That would be nothing, right? So yeah, the taxpayers giving them pocket money, and they go out and as I said, these day releases. So that the normal thing for someone like Hammond is he'd go out to a park for a few weeks with 2 nurses. Then he'd go to cafes and things, shopping centres with 2, then 1 nurse. A few months later, he's out by himself. And I know a very dangerous criminal subject to a suppression order that's happening right now. And an extremely dangerous one without a suppression order. That was in the Daily Mail yesterday, and I've met the family of these people. Pekka Lashenko, I think his name is. He killed his wife in front of his kids, wounded his father-in-law. Then he killed 2 inmates at Thomas Embling inside there, stabbed them in 2009. What the scramble was not to stop, and the staff at Thomas Embling went on strike when he went back in there because he's so dangerous. Now, I understand when it went to court, he had something like 720 unsupervised visits outside. Now, one of these visits, the day he killed 2 inmates, he was out fishing with one of them on the Yarra Bend at the Yarra River. Kids fish all around there. That psychopath then went inside, stabbed 2 inmates to death, and almost turned on the nurses before he was overpowered. If you think this is isolated, think again.
We've seen the consequences with Jill Maher of repeat offenders being given the benefit of the doubt, and as you say, this restorative justice. What needs to change, John? What needs to happen apart from holding the Andrews government accountable? What else can we do as a public?
That's at the moment with the Andrews regime. That's the only thing that moves them is publicity and exposure, and you can see that by their newspeak type press releases yesterday, and Molino in Parliament batting away these things. But the concept of restorative justice is not a bad thing. But the definite thing is that prisoners receive proper care and treatment for their problems inside. So with Hammond, as an example, he went inside, and what happened there is he didn't receive any psychiatric help whatsoever. He was offered, and he did what he calls a code of silence. He didn't say anything. He had no medication, nothing, and he was turfed out onto the streets of Melbourne, bumped into my daughter, and killed her. So he told inmates that next time round that he was going to kill someone. That was known, right? But the thing is, they don't receive treatment by corrections. I know from my time working with them in that space, we had a triage system and a whole range of very good alcohol and drug programs. Guess what? They're voluntary. So the attendance is about 40%. So, but see, this is what happens with when you run an authoritarian regime. What happens is that everyone gets in on the act and they're just making money out of it. So all these professionals and consultants jumped in and took the money, and here we are now. So that addressing the offenders inside would be great, because there's a high recidivism is still very high. And the same with Thomas Embling, it's lower, but Hammond wouldn't get any treatment until he's killed someone. And he's inside now, Thomas Embling. Now he gets treatment. So their reoffending rate in Thomas Embling drops to 25% versus, say, 65% in normal prisons.
So one of the answers is to get the treatment at the first point.
Yes. And like anything in government, it comes down to the people that run this. So now I've got a clown show that's run by ALP operatives, friends of friends, Facebook friends, you name it. We've been on the show before. No job interviews, nothing. Oh, please, do you want a job here? Yes, fine. Anyone from DPC, not a problem. All the other limited criteria that comes out. What about a professional with experience? Ooh, burn them. So that's not the go. So those people are running the show, right? So the big thing is to remove all those people and all of those heads of, I mentioned the OPP and corrections, particularly Department of Justice. So it's full of people that can't function because they're just absolutely mesmerized by the dazzling salaries that they're on.
And the space you work in, advocating for victims of crime and supporting them, as you've just said, go back to the previous victims of crime person was a former detective with years of experience, and I think it was probably one of the best advocates. And now we actually have a political operative again with no experience in this space.
That's right. In fact, corrections years ago was always run by the general rule was that it was someone that had worked up the ranks, became qualified, and really knew it inside and out. They were literally, to coin the phrase, lifers, and they're very good. I remember back in 2012, they appointed a ex-police commissioner in there in that role, and usually, they thought, oh, that was controversial because corrections don't like police and vice versa. But that person had a lot of great experience. I met him; he was really good. So that's not a problem. Fast forward to Andrew's regime, and here you have people like Emma Cassar running it, and the Department of Justice Secretary. Either they basically fit the mold of what Andrews wants to hire, but that's like a round peg in a square hole when it comes to experience and doing the job. So that's where it all falls down across the board. In the regime, you open the papers today, you see all the infrastructure debacles, et cetera, turn on the TV, you see corrections debacles, health, hospital, you name it. Point number one is the clowns that are running the show.
All right, John, well, we're going to have to leave it there. And again, your advocacy and working through this is inspirational and something that no one should have to endure. Thanks for all you do, and hopefully we can shift the needle on this and get some balance back in the system.
That's right. My last message to the regime, I'm going to keep fighting, and many other families will.
Well done, John. Thank you.
Good.